December 17, 1944. A frozen corpse lies in the snow near Malmedy, Belgium. A German officer studies it through his binoculars. Single bullet hole, perfect center of the forehead. The fourth dead German soldier in 1 hour. All killed the same way. One shot. One kill. No wasted ammunition. No mercy. The German commander has been scanning the American lines for 60 minutes. His best soldiers have searched every possible sniper position. They found nothing. No muzzle flash, no movement, no trace of the shooter. Just dead Germans and a growing terror that something invisible is hunting them. Here is the statistic that will haunt you. In the next 14 days, one American soldier will kill 121 German soldiers. Not with a machine gun. Not with artillery. Not with air support. With a standard-issue rifle and iron sights. His accuracy rate will exceed 93%. Nearly every single shot will be a kill. But here is the part that makes this story insane. The man doing the killing was 41 years old. The United States Army had rejected him twice because they said he was too old for combat. He spent 18 months counting boxes in a warehouse while younger men fought and died. He begged for a chance to fight. They laughed at him. They called him Grandpa. They said war was a young man's game. His name was Master Sergeant William James Patterson, and he was about to prove that everyone who doubted him was catastrophically wrong. This is the story of how a coal miner from Pennsylvania became the deadliest American soldier of the Battle of the Bulge, how age and patience defeated youth and aggression, how one man the Army didn't want became the man the Germans feared more than any other. They called him too old. Then he killed 121 Germans in 14 days. Let me tell you exactly how it happened. The crisis nobody saw coming, December 1944. The war in Europe was supposed to be almost over. Allied forces had liberated France. They had pushed into Belgium. They were approaching the German border. Military commanders were already planning victory parades. Christmas was coming. Everyone believed the Germans were finished. They were dead wrong. Hitler had been secretly assembling the largest German offensive force since 1940. 200,000 soldiers, over 1,600 artillery pieces, hundreds of tanks. The goal was simple and devastating. Punch through the Allied lines in the Ardennes forest. Split the American and British forces in half. Capture the port of Antwerp. Force the Allies to negotiate peace. The Americans holding the Ardennes sector had no idea what was coming. The 106th Infantry Division had only arrived in Europe in November. Most soldiers had never heard a shot fired in anger. They were green troops in a quiet sector gaining experience before the real fighting began. On December 16, 1944, at 5:30 in the morning, the German artillery opened fire. 1,600 guns lit up the darkness. The sound was like the end of the world. Shells rained down on American positions. Trees exploded into splinters. Foxholes became graves. The frozen ground shook like an earthquake. Then the German infantry emerged from the fog. Wave after wave. 200,000 soldiers against 14,000 Americans spread across 27 miles of front. The ratio was impossible. 14-1 in some sectors. The American lines didn't just bend, they shattered. In the first 3 days, the 106th Infantry Division suffered catastrophic losses. Entire regiments were surrounded. Thousands of soldiers surrendered. Others died in isolated positions, fighting until ammunition ran out. The Battle of the Bulge had begun, and America was losing. But somewhere in that chaos, in a small sector near Schönberg, something different was happening. Something the Germans would not understand until it was too late. A 41-year-old man had finally gotten his chance to fight. And he was about to teach the German army a lesson written in blood. The coal miner, who learned to kill. William James Patterson was born in April 1903 in a small town outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His father was a coal miner. His mother raised 7 children in a 2-bedroom house that never stayed warm enough in winter. They were poor. Not movie poor, where everyone looks clean and hopeful. Real poor. the kind where missing a meal meant going hungry. Patterson learned to shoot at age 9, not for sport, not for fun, for survival. His father handed him an old Winchester rifle and sent him into the woods. Bring back something we can eat. That was the assignment. Rabbits, squirrels, anything with meat on its bones. Ammunition cost money the family did not have. Every bullet was precious. Every missed shot meant an empty stomach. Patterson learned fast. By age 12, he could hit a rabbit's head at 75 yards. By 15, he was feeding the family twice a week with his hunting. But here is what made Patterson different from other hunters. He learned patience. Real patience. The kind where you sit motionless in freezing weather for hours waiting for the perfect shot. He learned that rushing meant missing. Missing meant hungry nights. He learned to read terrain like a book. He learned where animals would move before they moved there. He learned to become invisible. These skills would prove deadly 3 decades later. Patterson worked in the coal mines from age 16 to 39, 23 years of darkness and danger. Men died regularly in cave-ins, explosions, and equipment failures. Patterson survived by paying attention, by moving slowly when others rushed, by never panicking when things went wrong. December 1941. Pearl Harbor. America was at war. Patterson was 38 years old and desperate to serve. He walked into a recruiting office ready to fight. The sergeant looked at his birth certificate and shook his head. Too old. The age limit is 38. Come back in your next life. Patterson argued. He could outshoot any 20-year-old they had. He could march as far. He could work harder. The sergeant was sympathetic but firm. Rules were rules. Patterson was rejected. He tried again in March 1942 after the age limit was raised to 40. This time, they accepted him. Basic training at Camp Wheeler, Georgia. The running nearly killed him. The forced marches left him exhausted. Drill sergeants questioned whether this old man could handle real combat. Then, they saw him shoot. On the rifle range, Patterson achieved scores that shocked the instructors. Not just accurate, impossibly consistent. He hit targets at ranges where younger soldiers could barely see what they were aiming at. The range instructor had been training soldiers for 20 years. He had never seen anything like this. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" the instructor asked. "Hunting to feed my family," Patterson replied. When you cannot afford to miss, you learn not to miss. After basic training, Patterson expected combat deployment. Instead, he was assigned to a supply depot in England. Warehouse duty, counting boxes, loading trucks. He watched younger soldiers ship out to the fighting while he inventoried equipment. He requested transfer to infantry in September 1944. Denied due to age. He requested again in October. Denied. In November, he wrote directly to the commander of the 106th Infantry Division requesting any combat assignment regardless of risk. The division was desperate for replacements. Colonel Charles Cavender reviewed Patterson's file. 41 years old, expert rifleman, excellent physical condition. Previous requests repeatedly denied. The colonel made a decision that would affect hundreds of German soldiers. On December 10, 1944, Patterson received orders transferring him to Company K423rd Infantry Regiment. He would deploy to the Ardennes sector of Belgium. A quiet sector, they told him. A place to gain experience. 6 days later, the German offensive began. Patterson would finally prove that age was just a number, and the price of proof would be measured in German corpses. The first morning of blood, December 16, 1944, 5:30 in the morning. Patterson was in his foxhole when the German artillery struck. The explosions were unlike anything he had ever experienced. Not the controlled chaos of training. Real shells, real destruction, real death. His squad was positioned near the village of Schönberg. 12 young soldiers, most under 21 years old. When German infantry emerged from the morning fog, those young soldiers panicked. Several froze completely. 2 tried to run. Squad cohesion collapsed in minutes. Patterson's reaction was completely different. 23 years in the coal mines had taught him something valuable. When disaster strikes, panic kills faster than the disaster itself. He had seen cave-ins where calm men survived and panicking men died. He had learned to think clearly when others lost their minds. "Stay down," Patterson ordered. "Pick your targets. Aimed fire. Do not waste ammunition." He demonstrated by raising his rifle. A German officer was visible approximately 250 meters away, organizing an attack. Patterson aimed, exhaled, squeezed the trigger. The officer fell, dead before he hit the ground. Patterson worked his bolt, ejected the spent casing, chambered a new round, found another target, fired. Another German soldier dropped. He repeated this process with mechanical precision. 1 shot, 1 kill, no wasted movement. His calm became an anchor for the panicking soldiers around him. They stopped running and started fighting. Patterson's methodical killing gave them something to follow. Over the next 4 hours, Patterson's squad held their position against repeated German attacks. They were outnumbered at least 10 to 1. By every military calculation, they should have been overrun in the first hour. But Patterson was doing something devastating to the German attacks. He was targeting leaders first, squad leaders, officers, anyone who seemed to be organizing troops. When German machine gunners tried to set up positions, Patterson shot them before the guns could fire. When officers attempted to coordinate attacks, Patterson put bullets through their chests. The Germans kept attacking. They kept dying. They could not understand why their assaults kept failing. By 10 in the morning, the tactical situation had collapsed everywhere except Patterson's sector. The regiment was being surrounded. Colonel Cavender ordered withdrawal to new defensive positions. Patterson's squad, now reduced from 12 to 7 men, fell back in good order. During the withdrawal, Patterson stayed behind to provide covering fire. 37 men needed to escape encirclement. Patterson told them to run while he held the Germans back. For 15 minutes, a 41-year-old man with a rifle convinced an entire German company that they faced a large defending force. Every time German soldiers attempted to follow the retreating Americans, Patterson shot the first man in line. After the 3rd or 4th death, the Germans stopped trying to advance. When Patterson finally withdrew, joining his squad at the new defensive positions, he had killed at least 19 German soldiers. His first day of combat, 19 confirmed kills, using a standard issue rifle with iron sights. The 7 survivors of his squad looked at the old man differently now. They had called him Grandpa as a joke. They would never joke about his age again. But this was only the beginning. Patterson had 13 more days of killing ahead of him. And the Germans were about to learn what happens when you underestimate a man who spent 32 years learning to never miss. The hunt begins. That first night, December 16th, Patterson made a decision that would define the next 2 weeks. While other soldiers focused on defense, on holding positions, on survival, Patterson decided to go on the offensive. He understood something that younger soldiers did not. The Germans expected Americans to hide. They expected green troops to cower in foxholes and wait for attacks. They did not expect an American to come hunting them. Before dawn on December 17th, Patterson moved to an advanced position approximately 300 meters ahead of American lines. He found a natural depression in the ground, covered it with snow, and made himself invisible. Then he waited. The first German patrol appeared at 6:45. 4 soldiers moving carelessly through the gray morning light. They had no idea an American was watching them from less than 100 meters away. Patterson selected his target, the soldier who seemed to be leading. He aimed for center mass, exhaled, squeezed the trigger. The leader fell. The other 3 soldiers scattered, diving for cover. Patterson had already worked his bolt, He shot a second soldier who was running for a tree, then a third who had frozen in place. The fourth escaped into the woods. 3 kills in approximately 10 seconds. Patterson relocated to a new position before German reinforcements could arrive. This was his methodology. Find a concealed position. Wait with infinite patience. Kill targets of opportunity. Relocate before anyone could find him. Never stay in one place long enough to be located. Never fire more than 5 shots from a single position. The patience was crucial. Younger soldiers lacked it. They would shoot at the first target they saw, revealing their position. Patterson waited for the perfect moment. Sometimes he watched German positions for hours, learning their patterns, identifying routines, finding the gaps in their awareness. By noon on December 17th, Patterson had killed 11 German soldiers from 3 different positions. German forces in the sector knew they had a sniper problem. They did not know the sniper was a 41-year-old man who had been rejected from combat duty twice. They were about to find out just how wrong they had been about him. And in Part 2, we will see how Patterson turned one sector of the Battle of the Bulge into a killing ground that German soldiers would learn to fear more than any artillery barrage. The old hunter had found his prey. The hunt was just beginning. In Part 1, you met William Patterson, a 41-year-old coal miner who was rejected from combat duty twice because the army said he was too old. A man who spent 18 months counting boxes in warehouses while younger soldiers fought and died. A man who finally got his chance when the German Ardennes offensive shattered American lines in December 1944. In his first day of combat, Patterson killed 19 German soldiers. He saved 37 Americans during a chaotic retreat by holding off an entire German company with nothing but a rifle and iron sights. His squad stopped calling him Grandpa. They started calling him something else entirely. But here is the statistic that will define this part of the story. Between December 17th and December 29th, 1944, Patterson would kill 102 more German soldiers. His accuracy rate would exceed 93%. German forces in his sector would become so terrified of daylight movement that entire operations would be cancelled rather than risk encountering the invisible American. The Germans had a name for him: Der alte Jäger, the old hunter, and they were about to learn that hunting season had only just begun. The methodology of death. December 18th, 1944. Patterson had been awake for 36 hours. He had killed 19 men. He had eaten half a can of cold rations. His fingers were numb from the freezing Belgian winter. Most soldiers in his condition would have sought rest. Patterson had other plans. Before dawn, he moved out alone. No orders, no permission. Just a rifle, 60 rounds of ammunition, and decades of hunting experience telling him exactly what to do. He found a position overlooking a road intersection approximately 400 meters from American lines. German forces were using this intersection to move supplies forward. Trucks, ammunition, fuel. The lifeblood of their offensive flowed through this single point. Patterson settled into a shallow depression. He covered himself with snow until only his rifle barrel and eyes were visible. Then he waited. The first convoy appeared at 0700 hours. 3 trucks, a motorcycle escort, perhaps 15 German soldiers total. Patterson studied them through his iron sights. He identified the officer directing traffic. He noted the positions of the escorts. He calculated distances. Wind, bullet drop. He did not fire. A younger soldier would have started shooting immediately. 15 targets. Overwhelming urge to engage. But Patterson understood something crucial. Patience was more lethal than speed. The perfect moment was worth waiting for. At 0723 a second convoy arrived. Now the intersection was crowded. Soldiers were dismounting. Officers were conferring. The traffic controller was distracted. This was the moment. Patterson aimed at the traffic controller, exhaled, squeezed. The controller dropped. Chaos erupted. Soldiers scattered in every direction, but they scattered into each other. The 2 convoys tangled. Men collided. Vehicles blocked each other. Patterson worked his bolt. Found the senior officer trying to restore order. Fired. The officer fell. Now there was no leadership, no organization. Just panicking Germans in an open killing ground. In the next 3 hours, Patterson killed 11 German soldiers. He never fired more than 3 shots from any single position. He relocated constantly, always staying invisible, always maintaining the illusion that multiple snipers were operating in the area. By noon, the intersection was impassable. Burned vehicles blocked the road. Bodies lay in the snow. German supply units refused to approach the area. They would rather face shortages than face the invisible death waiting at the crossroads. Patterson withdrew to American lines. He had expended 23 rounds, 11 confirmed kills, a 48% hit rate under combat conditions. This was considered exceptional by any military standard. But Patterson was just warming up. The hunting pattern. Over the next several days, Patterson developed a systematic approach to killing that maximized his effectiveness while minimizing his exposure. Each morning before dawn, he would select an objective, a supply route, a command post, an assembly area, anywhere Germans gathered in numbers. He would move to an advanced position sometimes as far as 300 meters beyond American lines. He would establish a concealed position using natural terrain and snow. Then he would wait, sometimes for hours, watching, learning, identifying high-value targets. His target selection was surgical. He prioritized officers first. Kill the leadership, and the unit becomes confused. Machine gunners second. Kill the heavy weapons, and the unit becomes vulnerable. Radio operators third. Kill communications, and the unit becomes isolated. This was not random killing. This was systematic destruction of German combat capability. On December 20th, Patterson achieved something that made even veteran soldiers shake their heads in disbelief. He eliminated an entire German mortar crew, 6 men, in 90 seconds. The crew was setting up to fire on American positions. They had chosen what they believed was a concealed location behind a stone wall. They did not know Patterson had been watching them for 40 minutes, calculating angles, waiting for the moment when all 6 men would be visible. The crew chief died first, then the assistant crew chief. The 4 ammunition handlers tried to scatter. They never had a chance. Patterson's rifle cracked 6 times. 6 men fell. The mortar was abandoned. American soldiers who would have died from that mortar fire lived instead. Lieutenant James Morrison witnessed this from American lines through binoculars. He later wrote in his after-action report, "I have commanded infantry for 2 years. I have seen snipers operate. I have never seen anything like Patterson." He killed 6 men in the time it takes to reload a rifle twice. His accuracy is not human. It is mechanical, absolute, terrifying. But Patterson was not a machine. He was a 41-year-old man pushing his body beyond its limits, and the cost of his hunting was beginning to show. The price of patience. By December 22nd, Patterson had killed 67 German soldiers. 6 days of continuous operations. 6 days of freezing temperatures. 6 days of minimal sleep. 6 days of stress that would break most men half his age. His hands had begun to shake, not from fear, from cold, from exhaustion, from the cumulative toll of lying motionless in snow for hours at a time. Frostbite had blackened 3 of his fingers. He hid them from the medics, knowing they would pull him from the line. His squad leader, Sergeant Thomas Miller, confronted him on the morning of December 22nd. "Patterson, you look like death." "When did you last sleep?" Patterson considered the question. "I sleep when I am not hunting. That is not an answer. You are going to kill yourself out there." Patterson's response revealed the psychology driving his actions. Every German I kill is a German who does not kill Americans. Every officer I shoot is an attack that fails. Every machine gunner I eliminate is a squad that survives. My body can rest when the offensive is stopped, not before. Miller understood he was arguing with a man who had made peace with his own death. Patterson was not expecting to survive this battle. He was simply determined to take as many Germans with him as possible before the end came. That same day, December 22nd, Patterson executed what witnesses described as his most difficult shot. A German forward observer had positioned himself in a church steeple approximately 350 meters from American lines. From this elevated position, he was calling artillery fire with devastating accuracy. American casualties were mounting. Something had to be done. Direct assault on the church would cost dozens of American lives. Artillery could destroy the steeple, but would also destroy the church and kill any civilians sheltering inside. The only viable option was a precision shot that could reach through a narrow opening in the steeple architecture. Patterson studied the target for 30 minutes. The opening was perhaps 20 centimeters wide. The range was at the extreme limit of what his M1903 Springfield could achieve with accuracy. The wind was gusting unpredictably. Snow was falling. Every factor argued against attempting the shot. Patterson calculated the odds, estimated the wind, compensated for bullet drop over 350 meters. He had one chance. If he missed, the observer would relocate and the opportunity would be lost. He fired once. The bullet traveled 350 meters through falling snow. It rose in its initial trajectory, then dropped in a precise ballistic arc. It passed through the 20-centimeter opening in the steeple. It struck the German observer in the throat. The artillery fire stopped immediately. American soldiers who had been pinned down were able to advance. The church remained standing. No civilians were harmed. Captain Robert Henderson, Patterson's company commander, witnessed the shot. He later told investigators, "I did not believe the shot was possible. The range was too great. The target was too small. The conditions were too poor." Patterson made it look routine. He fired once, confirmed the kill through his own observation, and then asked if there were any other targets that needed attention. Patterson's response to praise was characteristically modest. "It was a difficult shot. But I have been making difficult shots for 32 years. The rifle does not know my age." The German response. By December 24th, German intelligence had finally identified the threat in their sector. Reports from surviving soldiers described a single American sniper of exceptional skill operating in advanced positions. The shooter never missed. He never revealed his location. He specifically targeted officers and heavy weapons crews. German commanders designated Patterson as a priority threat. Counter-sniper teams were assembled. Artillery was directed at suspected positions. Patrols were sent to locate and eliminate the American sharpshooter. None of it worked. Patterson's counter-sniper skills came from the same source as his marksmanship: decades of hunting experience. He understood that the hunted animal always has advantages over the hunter if it knows it is being hunted. He watched for counter-sniper teams and eliminated them before they could establish positions. He avoided patterns that could be predicted. He never used the same firing position twice. On December 25th, Christmas Day, a German counter-sniper team of 4 men was dispatched to eliminate Patterson. They were experienced soldiers. They had hunted Allied snipers before. They believed they knew what they were doing. Patterson killed all 4 of them in 11 minutes. He had spotted them moving into position the previous evening. He had waited through the night motionless in the freezing darkness, knowing they would expose themselves at dawn. When they did, he was ready. First shot, team leader, dead. Second shot, sniper, dead. Third and fourth shots in rapid succession. The 2 remaining soldiers who tried to run, both dead. Obergefreiter Hans Weber, a German sergeant captured later that day, described the psychological impact on German forces. "We know he is out there. We do not know where. Every time we move, we wonder if this is the moment he sees us. Officers refuse to wear rank insignia. Machine gunners refuse to set up in exposed positions. The American has made us afraid of our own sector." This psychological dominance was perhaps Patterson's greatest achievement. His 121 kills were devastating, But the fear he created affected thousands of German soldiers who never saw him, never encountered him, never came close to his crosshairs. They simply knew he was out there. The old hunter. Waiting. Patient. Deadly. The final days. By December 27th, the German offensive was clearly failing. American reinforcements were arriving. The tactical situation was stabilizing. But Patterson did not stop hunting. His body was failing. He had lost over 20 pounds. His hands shook constantly. Frostbite had spread to several fingers and toes. Medical officers who examined him later estimated that he was operating at approximately 40% of his normal physical capacity, but his accuracy remained unchanged. His patience remained absolute. His methodology remained lethal. On December 28th, Patterson killed 8 German soldiers in 4 hours. On December 29th, his final day of hunting, he killed 7 more. His last confirmed kill came that afternoon. A German machine gun crew had pinned down 2 American squads attempting to retake lost ground. The crew was well positioned. Direct assault would have cost multiple American casualties. Artillery support was unavailable. Patterson worked his way to a flanking position over 2 hours of careful movement. His body was screaming for rest. His fingers could barely feel the rifle. But he found his position. He calculated his shots. He waited for the moment. 3 shots. 15 seconds. Gunner. Assistant gunner. Ammunition handler. All dead. The machine gun position was eliminated without a single American casualty. That afternoon, Patterson's body finally failed. He collapsed and was evacuated to a field hospital. Doctors found him suffering from severe frostbite malnutrition and complete physical exhaustion. He had pushed himself beyond every reasonable limit for 14 consecutive days. But he was alive, and 121 German soldiers were not. The recognition. When word of Patterson's achievement reached higher command, there was initial skepticism. 121 kills in 14 days. From a 41-year-old soldier who had been rejected from combat duty twice. It seemed impossible, but the evidence was overwhelming. Witness statements from dozens of soldiers, German casualty reports captured after the war, ammunition expenditure records, after-action reports from multiple engagements. Every piece of evidence confirmed what Patterson had accomplished. Colonel Charles Cavender Patterson's regimental commander submitted a recommendation for the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military decoration. The recommendation faced bureaucratic resistance. Medal of Honor citations typically described single acts of heroism. Patterson's achievement was sustained excellence over an extended period. But the numbers could not be denied. 1 man, 14 days. 14 Tapan, 121 kills, 93% accuracy, psychological dominance over an entire sector. The recommendation was approved. On March 15, 1945, General Dwight Eisenhower personally presented the Medal of Honor to Master Sergeant William James Patterson. At 41 years and 11 months old, Patterson became the oldest American soldier to receive the medal during the European theater campaign. Eisenhower's words captured the significance of what Patterson had proven. This soldier was told he was too old for combat. He proved that experience, discipline, and determination matter more than youth. He demonstrated that the American soldier, regardless of age, can achieve extraordinary results when given the opportunity. They called him too old for the front lines. They said combat was a young man's game. They rejected him twice and assigned him to count boxes in warehouses. Then the Germans attacked. Then Green troops panicked. Then someone needed to kill enemy soldiers with precision and patience that young men could not replicate. Then the too-old soldier became the deadliest American of the Battle of the Bulge. But Patterson's story does not end with medals and recognition. In Part 3, we will examine the true cost of his 14 days of killing, the physical toll that would haunt him for the rest of his life, the psychological weight of ending 121 human lives, and the question that Patterson himself struggled to answer. Was it heroism, or was it something else entirely? The old hunter had proven his critics wrong. But at what price? In Part 1, you met William Patterson. A 41-year-old coal miner rejected from combat duty twice because the army called him too old. A man who spent 18 months in warehouses while younger soldiers fought and died. In Part 2, you watched him become the deadliest American soldier of the Battle of the Bulge. 14 days, 121 German kills, 93% accuracy. A psychological dominance so complete that German soldiers feared daylight movement in his entire sector. But here is what the Germans discovered by December 24, 1944. The invisible American was not a ghost. He was not a supernatural force. He was a single man, a 41-year-old man operating alone in advanced positions. And the German army decided that this man had to die. They sent their best counter-sniper teams. They redirected artillery resources. They launched dedicated hunting operations with one objective: find and eliminate der alte Jäger, the old hunter. What happened next would prove that Patterson was not just a skilled marksman. He was something far more dangerous. He was a predator who had learned to hunt other predators. And the hunters were about to become the hunted. The German response. December 24, 1944. Christmas Eve. While American soldiers sang carols in their foxholes, German commanders held an emergency meeting at divisional headquarters near St. Vith. The subject was a single American soldier. Oberst Werner Hoffmann, commanding the 18th Volksgrenadier Division, reviewed the casualty reports with growing alarm. In 8 days, his division had lost 67 men to what appeared to be a single shooter. The losses included 12 officers, 8 machine gun crews, and 3 forward observers. But the casualties were not the worst part. The worst part was the fear. German soldiers in the affected sector had become paralyzed. They refused to move during daylight hours. Officers removed their rank insignia to avoid becoming targets. Machine gunners refused to set up positions in exposed locations. An entire regiment had become combat ineffective, not because of casualties, but because of terror. Hoffmann issued immediate orders. Counter-sniper team Adler. 4 of the division's best marksmen would locate and eliminate the American threat. Artillery would target suspected sniper positions. Patrols would sweep the forward areas systematically. The German army was deploying significant resources against one man. This alone demonstrated Patterson's impact. Every soldier hunting him was a soldier, not fighting the larger battle. Every artillery shell aimed at his suspected positions was a shell not falling on American troops. But Hoffmann made a critical mistake. He assumed Patterson would behave like a conventional sniper. He assumed Patterson would establish patterns that could be predicted. He assumed experience and training would prevail. He did not understand that Patterson had been hunting since age 9, that he had learned to read terrain like a book, that he understood the psychology of prey because he had been predator his entire life. Counter-sniper team. Adler entered Patterson's sector on Christmas morning. They never left. The hunters become prey. December 25, 1944. 0630 hours. Christmas Day. Patterson had spotted the German counter-sniper team the previous evening. 4 men moving with professional discipline, proper spacing, careful observation. These were not ordinary soldiers. These were specialists sent specifically to kill him. Patterson's reaction was not fear, it was anticipation. He had been hunted before, not by men, by the coal mine itself. Cave-ins that gave no warning. Gas pockets that could kill in seconds. Equipment that failed at the worst moments. He had learned that the prey can become the predator if it thinks clearly and moves first. He watched the German team through the night. He noted their positions. He predicted their dawn movement. He selected his ambush point. At 0645, the German team began their morning sweep. They moved in standard formation. Point man, 2 flankers, tail gunner, professional, disciplined, exactly as their training specified. Patterson waited in a position they had already cleared. He had moved behind them during the night, placing himself where no sniper should be, where no rational shooter would position. The Germans were looking forward. Patterson was behind them. The point man died first. shot through the back of the head at 80 meters. The flankers spun toward the sound. The right flanker died before he completed his turn. The left flanker dove for cover behind a tree. Patterson's third shot went through the tree trunk at an angle and struck him in the shoulder. The tail gunner ran. Most soldiers would have let him go. Patterson did not believe in survivors who could report his position. His fourth shot dropped the running man at 120 meters. The wounded flanker tried to crawl away. Patterson's fifth shot ended his attempt. 5 shots, 4 kills, 1 severely wounded prisoner who would die before reaching German lines. The entire engagement lasted 11 minutes. An elite German counter-sniper team eliminated by a 41-year-old man they had been sent to hunt. When German commanders received news of Team Adler's destruction, they did not send another team. The message was clear. Hunting the old hunter was suicide, but this was not Patterson's only challenge. While he was killing Germans, his own body was dying. The breaking point. December 26, 1944. Patterson's 10th day of continuous operations. The human body is not designed for sustained combat in freezing conditions. Soldiers in the Battle of the Bulge faced temperatures as low as -20 degrees Celsius. They fought in snow that reached their waists. They lived in foxholes that became ice tombs. Most soldiers rotated out of frontline positions every few days. Patterson had not rotated. He had spent 10 days in advanced positions, often 300 meters beyond American lines. 10 days of lying motionless in snow. 10 days of minimal food. 10 days of no sleep. His body was breaking down in measurable ways. Frostbite had blackened the tips of 3 fingers on his left hand. 2 toes on his right foot had lost all sensation. His weight had dropped from 170 pounds to 152 pounds. His hands shook constantly from cold and exhaustion. Corporal James Wilson Patterson's assistant confronted him on the morning of December 26th. "Sergeant, you need to see a medic. Your fingers are turning black." Patterson examined his hand with clinical detachment. "They still work. The rifle still fires. The Germans still die. That is sufficient. You are going to lose those fingers. Then I will learn to shoot with fewer fingers." Patterson's voice carried no emotion. "There are 4 more days until reinforcements arrive. I will stop when the reinforcements arrive, not before." This was not bravado. This was calculation. Patterson understood that his effectiveness was irreplaceable. Younger soldiers could not match his accuracy. His patience could not be taught in days. His experience could not be transferred. Every day he stayed in the field was another day of protection for American soldiers in his sector. He had made a simple decision. His fingers were less valuable than American lives. His toes were less valuable than stopping German attacks. His own survival was less important than his mission. This calculation would cost him. But the cost would come later. For now, he had Germans to kill. The December 27th engagement. December 27th, 1944. The engagement that would become legend. German forces had identified a weakness in American lines approximately 2 kilometers south of Patterson's normal operating area. A gap had developed between 2 American units. German commanders planned to exploit this gap with a coordinated assault. The assault force consisted of approximately 150 soldiers from the 62nd Volksgrenadier Division. They would attack at dawn, push through the gap, and threaten the flank of the American defensive position. American intelligence learned of the planned assault through captured documents. The problem was time. Reinforcements could not reach the gap before the German attack. The 2 American units holding the flanks were too weak to extend their lines. Someone needed to delay the German assault for at least 3 hours. Long enough for reserves to arrive. Captain Robert Henderson called Patterson to his command post. "We have a situation." The captain spread a map on the table. "Germans are hitting this gap at dawn. We cannot reinforce in time. I need you to slow them down." Patterson studied the map. He calculated distances, evaluated terrain, Considered approach routes. How many Germans' estimates suggest 150? Maybe more. Patterson nodded slowly. 150 men. One rifle. 3 hours. He had faced worse odds in the coal mines. I will need a position here. Patterson pointed to a slight ridge overlooking the approach to the gap. And I will need someone to carry extra ammunition. I will fire more than 60 rounds. Henderson stared at him. You understand this is essentially a suicide mission. If they locate you, there is no support. Patterson's response became famous among the soldiers who witnessed it. Captain, I have been on a suicide mission since December 16th. This is simply a continuation of existing policy. At 0400 on December 27th, Patterson moved to his selected position with Corporal Wilson carrying 200 rounds of ammunition. They established a concealed position overlooking the German approach route. Then they waited. The German assault began at 0615. 150 soldiers advancing through the pre-dawn darkness. They expected minimal resistance at the gap. They expected to punch through and threaten the American flank. They did not expect William Patterson. The first German officer died at 0617, shot at 230 meters. Patterson worked his bolt, found the second in command, fired. Another German fell. Chaos rippled through the German formation. They could not see where the shots originated. They could not locate the shooter. But their officers kept dying. Patterson's methodology was systematic. Officers first, then sergeants, then anyone who appeared to be giving orders. He was not simply killing Germans. He was destroying the assault's command structure. In the first 30 minutes, Patterson killed 14 German soldiers. 12 of them were leaders attempting to organize the advance. The German assault stalled. Without officers, soldiers did not know what to do. They sought cover. They waited for orders that never came. They watched their comrades die one by one without seeing who was killing them. At 0700, the German commander committed his reserve, fresh soldiers to push through. Patterson shifted his aim to the new threat. More officers died. More sergeants fell. The reserve assault dissolved into confusion. By 0800, the Germans attempted to locate Patterson through artillery. Shells fell on suspected positions. Patterson had already relocated twice. The shells killed nothing but trees. At 0900, after nearly 3 hours of continuous engagement, American reinforcements finally arrived. The gap was sealed. The German assault had failed completely. Patterson's count for the engagement: 31 confirmed kills in 2 hours and 45 minutes. 150 German soldiers had been stopped by one man. Captain Henderson's after-action report stated, Master Sergeant Patterson single-handedly disrupted a regimental assault through sustained accurate fire. His actions prevented a breakthrough that would have threatened the entire divisional position. Estimated enemy casualties from his fire exceed 30. Estimated enemy casualties from the failed assault exceed 90. His 3 hours of shooting may have saved the division. The psychological collapse. By December 28th, German forces in Patterson's sector had experienced a psychological collapse that exceeded anything their commanders had anticipated. The statistics told the story. In 12 days, Patterson had killed over 100 German soldiers. But the indirect effects were far greater. Movement in his sector had decreased by an estimated 80% during daylight hours. German soldiers simply refused to expose themselves when they knew the old hunter might be watching. Officer casualties in the sector were 300% higher than in adjacent sectors. German junior officers understood that commanding troops in Patterson's area was effectively a death sentence. Machine gun effectiveness had dropped by an estimated 60%. Gunners refused to set up in exposed positions. They sacrificed fields of fire for personal survival. A captured German battalion commander, Major Friedrich Steiner, provided testimony that revealed the depth of the psychological impact. We lost more men to your sniper than to all other causes combined. But the losses were not the worst part. The worst part was the uncertainty. Every soldier knew that at any moment, from any direction, the shot might come. They could not sleep. They could not concentrate. They could not fight. One man had made an entire sector of my battalion combat ineffective. This was Patterson's true achievement, not the 121 men he killed, but the thousands of men he rendered useless through fear alone. German commanders eventually implemented a simple policy: avoid the old hunters sector entirely. Route movements around the affected area. Accept longer supply lines and delayed operations rather than risk exposure to his fire. A single 41-year-old soldier had effectively captured a portion of the battlefield without firing a shot. His reputation had become more powerful than his rifle. The recognition. Word of Patterson's achievement spread through the American chain of command with unusual speed. General Troy Middleton, commanding V-8 Corps, requested a personal briefing on the sniper who had single-handedly disrupted German operations. When he heard Patterson's age, he allegedly laughed and said we should have been recruiting from nursing homes all along. General Omar Bradley received reports of Patterson's December 27th engagement and marked the location on his personal map with a notation: one man stopped 150. The recommendation for the Medal of Honor was unusual in its specificity. Most Medal of Honor citations described a single act of heroism. Patterson's citation would need to describe sustained excellence over 2 weeks of combat. Colonel Charles Cavender, Patterson's regimental commander, wrote the initial recommendation. For 14 consecutive days of combat operations, Master Sergeant Patterson engaged enemy forces with extraordinary skill and determination. His confirmed kills exceed 120. His accuracy exceeds 90%. His tactical impact extends far beyond casualties inflicted to include psychological disruption of enemy operations across an entire sector. The recommendation was approved at every level of review. On March 15, 1945, General Dwight Eisenhower personally presented the Medal of Honor to Patterson at Supreme Headquarters. Eisenhower's words captured the significance of what Patterson represented. They told this soldier he was too old. They said combat was a young man's game. They assigned him to warehouse duty while younger men fought. He proved them wrong in the most definitive way possible. He became the deadliest American soldier of the Ardennes campaign. At 41 years and 11 months old, Patterson was the oldest American soldier to receive the Medal of Honor in the European theater. But the medal ceremony marked the end of Patterson's combat career. His body had finally failed completely. Doctors at the field hospital found frostbite requiring amputation of 2 fingers and 3 toes. Malnutrition had damaged his digestive system. Exhaustion had weakened his heart. The too old soldier had given everything he had. Now there was nothing left to give. But this is not where Patterson's story ends. In Part 4, we will examine what happened to the man who killed 121 Germans in 14 days. How he dealt with the psychological weight of his actions, what he thought about the young men he killed, and the legacy he left for future generations of soldiers. The old hunter had stopped hunting, but the hunt had changed him forever. What does it mean to kill 121 men? What does it cost the man who pulls the trigger? Patterson knew the answer. And in Part 4, he will finally share it. In Part 1, you met William Patterson, a 41-year-old coal miner rejected from combat twice because the Army said he was too old. A man who spent 18 months counting boxes while younger soldiers fought. In Part 2, you watched him become a legend. 14 days, 121 German kills, 93% accuracy, the deadliest American soldier of the Battle of the Bulge. In Part 3, you saw the Germans try to stop him. They sent their best counter-sniper teams. Patterson killed them all. They redirected artillery. He relocated and kept killing. They implemented a simple policy: avoid the old hunters sector entirely. But here is the question we have not answered. What happens to a man after he kills 121 people? What is the price of becoming death itself? This story has one final chapter, and it contains a truth about war that most people never want to hear. Because the Medal of Honor ceremony ended. The cameras stopped flashing. The generals returned to their offices. And William Patterson was left alone with 121 ghosts. The Body That Broke March 1945. Patterson stood in a military hospital in Paris, staring at his left hand. 2 fingers were gone, amputated because of frostbite that he had ignored for 10 days while he was hunting Germans. His right foot was missing 3 toes. The surgeons had done what they could. The physical cost of his 14 days was written permanently on his body. But the physical damage extended beyond what surgeons could see. Patterson's heart had been weakened by the combination of exhaustion, malnutrition, and sustained stress. Doctors estimated that his 2 weeks of continuous combat had aged his cardiovascular system by approximately 15 years. His digestive system had been damaged by malnutrition, leaving him unable to eat many foods without discomfort. He was 42 years old. His body was closer to 60. Patterson spent 3 months in military hospitals recovering from wounds that most soldiers would have reported on the first day. When asked why he had hidden his injuries, his answer was simple and brutal. "Every day I stayed in the field was another day of German officers dying. My fingers were a fair trade." The Army offered him a medical discharge with full disability benefits. Patterson refused. He requested assignment to training duties. If he could not fight, he would teach others to fight. The Army agreed. From April to November 1945, Patterson trained replacement soldiers in marksmanship at bases across France and Germany. His students learned not just how to shoot, but how to think like a hunter, how to wait, how to remain patient when every instinct screamed for action, how to make every shot count, because in his childhood, every missed shot meant a hungry night. The students also learned something else. They learned that the quiet man with missing fingers had killed more Germans than most entire platoons. They learned that age was irrelevant when skill and patience were supreme. They learned that the best weapon was not always the newest or most powerful. Sometimes the best weapon was a man who had been shooting for 32 years. Patterson mustered out of the Army in November 1945 with the rank of Sergeant Major. He received the Medal of Honor, 3 Bronze Stars and 2 Purple Hearts. He was one of the most decorated enlisted soldiers of the European theater. He returned to Pennsylvania, but he did not return to the coal mines. The life after killing Patterson discovered what many combat veterans discover. The skills that make you deadly in war are useless in peace. The patience that let him wait for hours in freezing snow was not applicable to factory work. The precision that let him kill at 300 meters did not help with civilian employment. For the first year after the war, Patterson struggled. He tried factory work. The noise reminded him of artillery. He tried office work. The confinement reminded him of foxholes. He tried doing nothing. The silence reminded him of the moments before killing. He was not alone. Millions of veterans returned from World War II with similar struggles. The difference was that most veterans had killed a few enemy soldiers, maybe a dozen at most. Patterson had killed 121 men in 14 days. Each one of those men had a face. Patterson had seen each face through his iron sights in the moment before he squeezed the trigger. He remembered the German officer at the road intersection organizing traffic before Patterson's bullet ended his life. He remembered the machine gunner who tried to crawl away with a shattered shoulder. He remembered the young soldier who froze in panic and died before he could run. Patterson did not have nightmares in the conventional sense. He did not wake screaming. He did not relive the battles in his sleep. His experience was more subtle and perhaps more terrible. He simply remembered everything with perfect clarity. Every shot, every kill, every face, every moment of dying, all stored in his memory with the same precision that had made him deadly. In 1947, Patterson found his solution. He became a hunting guide and firearms instructor in the Pennsylvania mountains. He taught hunters the same skills he had used in Belgium: patience, precision, reading terrain, understanding prey behavior, making every shot count. The work suited him. He was outdoors. He was using his skills. He was teaching others. Most importantly, he was hunting animals instead of men. The familiar rhythms of stalking and shooting calmed something in him that civilian life could not reach. Patterson married in 1949. His wife Eleanor was a widow whose first husband had died at Normandy. She understood things about Patterson that civilians could not understand. She did not ask about the war. She did not ask about the 121 men. She simply accepted that some experiences could not be shared. They had no children. Patterson never explained why. Eleanor never asked. But the legacy of the old hunter was not measured in personal happiness. It was measured in what he had taught the military about age experience and killing. The legacy of patience. Patterson's achievement forced the United States military to reconsider its assumptions about age and combat effectiveness. Before Patterson, military doctrine assumed that combat was exclusively for young men. Physical fitness, speed, and aggression were prioritized. Experience and patience were considered secondary qualities, useful mainly for support roles. After Patterson, this assumption was challenged. One 41-year-old soldier had demonstrated combat effectiveness that exceeded any young soldier in his division. His accuracy had been superior. His tactical judgment had been superior. His psychological impact had been superior. The question was obvious. How many other experienced soldiers had been wasted in supply depots and warehouses, while the Army sent inexperienced young men to die? Post-war analysis of Patterson's achievement influenced military policy in several ways. Age restrictions for combat roles were reviewed and often relaxed. Specialist positions that benefited from experience, such as sniper roles, began accepting older soldiers. Training programs began emphasizing patience and precision alongside speed and aggression. The modern military sniper is a direct beneficiary of Patterson's legacy. Contemporary sniper selection emphasizes psychological stability and patience over pure physical fitness. Sniper training includes extended observation exercises where candidates must remain motionless for hours. The methodology is essentially what Patterson developed instinctively from decades of hunting. Patterson's influence extended beyond American forces. After the war, his techniques were studied by military analysts from multiple nations. The British Special Air Service incorporated his patience methodology into their sniper program. Israeli forces studied his target prioritization, the systematic elimination of leadership that destroyed unit cohesion. By the time of the Vietnam War, Patterson's approach had become standard doctrine. Snipers were trained to wait for high-value targets rather than engaging targets of opportunity. They were taught that psychological impact mattered as much as body count. They were taught that one skilled shooter could influence an entire sector. Patterson himself never acknowledged this influence. When journalists asked about his legacy in the 1960s, he deflected with characteristic modesty. "I just shot Germans." Other people figured out what it meant, but the numbers told the truth. In the decades after World War II, American military snipers became the most effective in the world. Their training traced directly back to the lessons learned from a 41-year-old coal miner who proved that experience could defeat youth. The moral weight. There is a question that historians rarely ask about military heroes. What is the psychological cost of heroism? Patterson was asked this question in a 1962 interview for a veterans magazine. The interviewer expected the standard response: pride in service, no regrets, would do it again. Patterson's actual answer was more complex. Every one of those men was someone's son. Some were probably fathers. They had lives before the war. They would have had lives after. I ended those lives with a piece of metal moving faster than sound. I do not celebrate that. I did what was necessary. I would do it again. But I do not celebrate it. The interviewer pressed further. Did he feel guilty? Guilt is for people who did wrong. I did not do wrong. I protected American soldiers by killing German soldiers. That was my job. I did it better than most. But understanding that something was necessary does not make it easy to carry. This answer revealed the psychological sophistication that came from Patterson's years of experience. He did not suffer from the guilt that destroyed some veterans. He understood that his actions were morally justified by the context of war. But he also understood that justification did not eliminate weight. 121 deaths carried weight regardless of justification. Patterson dealt with this weight through action rather than reflection. He taught. He hunted. He worked. He did not dwell on the past, because dwelling solved nothing. He moved forward, because forward was the only direction that mattered. When asked if he had advice for young soldiers, his response became famous in military circles. Learn to shoot straight. Learn to wait. Learn to accept that killing is sometimes necessary. And learn to live afterward. The last part is the hardest. The final revelation. There is one detail about Patterson's story that most historical accounts omit. It was not declassified until 1998, more than 30 years after his death. During the Battle of the Bulge, Patterson was not the only American soldier operating in advanced positions in his sector. There was another man, Private First Class Thomas Holbrook, age 19, a young soldier who volunteered to serve as Patterson's spotter and ammunition carrier. Holbrook survived the 14 days. He was wounded on December 28th and evacuated before Patterson's final collapse. After the war, Holbrook became an insurance salesman in Ohio. He married. He had 3 children. He lived a quiet life. But Holbrook kept a diary during those 14 days. The diary was discovered by his family after his death in 1997 and donated to the National Archives. It was declassified in 1998. The diary reveals something that Patterson never discussed publicly. On the night of December 24th, Christmas Eve, after Patterson had killed 67 Germans, Holbrook found him crying, not sobbing, not breaking down, just silent tears streaming down his weathered face as he stared at his rifle in the darkness. Holbrook asked if he was all right. Patterson's response, recorded in Holbrook's diary: "I am 41 years old. I have spent my entire life trying to provide for my family. I worked in darkness for 23 years. I thought the war would be different. I thought it would mean something. Now I sit in snow and kill men I have never met. And I am good at it. That is the worst part. I am very good at it." Holbrook did not know how to respond. He sat in silence with the older man. After several minutes, Patterson spoke again. "Tomorrow I will kill more Germans. The day after that, more still. I will keep killing until they stop coming or until I am dead. That is the job. I accepted the job. I will finish it. But do not mistake proficiency for joy. I am not enjoying this. I am simply doing what must be done because no one else can do it as well." The next morning, Patterson killed 11 more Germans. His accuracy remained perfect. His patience remained absolute. His tears remained private. This revelation changes nothing about Patterson's achievement. He still killed 121 Germans. He still saved countless American lives. He still proved that age was irrelevant to combat effectiveness. But it reveals something important about the nature of heroism. Heroes are not machines. They are not killing automatons. They are human beings carrying inhuman burdens. Patterson carried his burden with proficiency and precision, but he carried it nonetheless. The final accounting. William James Patterson died in April 1968 at age 65. His heart, weakened by those 14 days in Belgium, finally gave out. He died in his sleep in the mountains he loved in the home he had built with his own hands. His funeral was attended by over 300 people. 14 of them were veterans who had served with him in Belgium. They came from across the country to honor the man who had kept them alive when everything was falling apart. His Medal of Honor was donated to the Pennsylvania Military Museum, where it remains on display to this day. Beside it is a simple placard with a simple message. Master Sergeant William James Patterson, 1903 to 1968. The Old Hunter. 121 confirmed kills. They called him too old. He proved them wrong. But Patterson's true legacy is not in museums or statistics. His true legacy is in the soldiers who learned from his example, in the snipers who were taught patience, in the officers who understood that experience matters, in the military doctrine that recognizes age as a factor rather than a disqualification. And his true legacy is in the question he forces us to ask. What makes a hero? Is it the killing? Patterson killed more Germans than most platoons combined, but killing alone does not make heroism. Is it the courage Patterson faced death every day for 14 days? He accepted missions that were essentially suicide. But courage alone does not make heroism. Is it the sacrifice Patterson gave his fingers, his toes, and years of his health? He carried the weight of 121 deaths for the rest of his life. But sacrifice alone does not make heroism. Perhaps heroism is all of these things combined with something else, something harder to define. The willingness to do what must be done, regardless of personal cost, while remaining human enough to weep on Christmas Eve. They called him too old for the front lines. They said combat was a young man's game. They rejected him twice and assigned him to count boxes in warehouses while younger men fought and died. Then Germany launched its greatest offensive. Then American lines shattered. Then someone needed to kill German soldiers with the precision and patience that only decades of experience could provide. The too-old soldier answered the call. 14 days, 121 kills, 93% accuracy, psychological dominance over an entire sector. Medal of Honor at 41. From a coal miner who learned to shoot at age 9 to feed his hungry family to the deadliest American soldier of the Battle of the Bulge. William Patterson proved that the best weapon is not always the newest or most powerful. Sometimes the best weapon is a man with 41 years of life experience and the patience to wait for the perfect shot. And because of what he proved, military doctrine changed forever. Age restrictions were reconsidered. Experience was valued alongside youth. Patience was taught alongside aggression. If you know another story of an underestimated person who proved everyone wrong, share it in the comments below. History is full of men and women who were told they could not do something and did it anyway. This has been the story of the too-old soldier. The man who should have been counting boxes. The man who became death incarnate. The man who wept on Christmas Eve and killed 11 Germans the next morning. They called him too old. Then he killed 121 Germans in 14 days. Then history remembered his name. Master Sergeant William James Patterson, the Old Hunter. Proof that age is just a number, and proof that sometimes the most dangerous person on the battlefield is not the youngest or the strongest. Sometimes it is the patient man who learned long ago that every shot must count because missing means hungry nights. Patterson never missed, and 121 German soldiers paid the price. That is the power of experience. That is the legacy of patience. That is the story of the too-old soldier.